good.
I'm just happy it being a butter.
That was the gavel. Good evening. It's 6 p.m. and I'd like to call to order the Planning and Zoning meeting of May 16th, 2025. Madam Secretary, do we have a quorum?
There we go. Sorry, my microphone was not working there at the beginning. We will move on to item 2, public comment. I do not have any public comment forms at this time. So item 3, consent agenda.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
No discussion on that. Time to vote. Okay. And that passed unanimously.
On to item 4A, this is an application for a zoning change request from agriculture to residential suburban density 1 to allow for a subdivision of a property.
Robbie, are you going to present from there?
Yes, I'll be presenting from here. I just need to figure out where the presentation went. Excellent. Good evening, P&Z Commissioners, City of Fate. My name is Robbie Highfield. I'm the Senior Planner for the City of Fate. And I'll be giving the staff presentation for the White Property Zoning Request, Project ID ZR25003. This is a location off of Greenbrier, just west of North Churchill Drive. This is a straight zoning request from agriculture to residential suburban density 1. The goal is to subdivide into 2 lots. In the picture on the right side of the screen, you can see a faded dotted line, which is the approximate area, the approximate subdivision, how the lots would be split. Lot 1 would be approximately 1 acre, and Lot 2 would be the remaining 0.88 acres. And the applicant's requesting R1 due to lot size constraints. The R1 zoning district permits lots 10,000 square feet to 1 acre, or 43,560 square feet. Currently, the property is 1 lot, approximately 1.88 acres on Greenbrier Road, 460 feet west of Churchill. Currently zoned ag, and there's 1 house plus associated accessory structures on the site. You can see the rough boundaries in yellow here. So with a straight zoning request, there's 3 zoning criteria or approval criteria. Does it meet the comprehensive plan and other adopted plans? Does it meet the character of the surrounding area? And any other factors to consider Texas law or case law. So the comprehensive plan and other adopted plans, this property is in the suburban neighborhood place type. The suburban neighborhood place type is predominantly used for single family development, multifamily retail office, and ancillary structures. One of the representative land uses is for single-family dwellings, both detached and attached, and a representative zoning district is R1. The staff find that criterion A is met. Criterion B doesn't meet the character of the surrounding neighborhood. So you can see here our future land use plan. That orange color is that suburban neighborhood, which surrounds the entire property. The property is also surrounded by subdivisions, those being Reserve at Chamberlain Crossing to the south, and some rural neighborhood, rural large lot neighborhoods a bit further to the east. Given the residential nature surrounding this property, staff find that it meets the character of the surrounding neighborhood and criterion B being met. And there's no other case law or Texas law in this zoning case to consider, so criterion C is not applicable. With all zoning cases, we're required by the state to send out public notice. In this case, we send it out in a 200-foot buffer around the property. That resulted in 19 notices, and we received one response. That response was against, and the reasons given were traffic concerns and insufficient infrastructure. While we normally do fiscal analyses, given this is just a simple subdivision into 2 lots, we did not do one in this case due to the limited impact of this request and its simplicity it will have. So staff's recommending approval of case ZR 25003. I can take any questions now, or the applicant is here, so I can do it after questions with him. Thank you.
Thank you, Robbie. Commissioners, any questions for staff, or would you like to wait until the applicant presents? Anyone have any questions?
I have one question
Okay.
that I want answered before we get the presentation. Now, I know this is a subdivide, and this is just me because it hasn't been a full year. Do subdivision requests have to come with a zoning request?
If the property was large enough, no. However, this property's never been zoned, so it defaults to the agriculture district. The minimum lot size in agriculture is 5 acres. So given they only have 1.88 acres, in order to subdivide into 2 lots, they're not allowed to subdivide to a non-conforming lot size. So we have to rezone the property, so when they do the subdivisions, both lots will be in compliance with lot area.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, if the applicant would like to come forward. Good evening.
I'm Paul White. We're just requesting the rezoning, so like Robbie said, we can basically sell the back part of the property off. We just don't need all the land. No other plans other than that. Pretty cut and dry.
Commissioners, did you have any questions for Mr. White?
Oh, yeah, you like that? Yeah, sorry.
I like that.
Any other questions? I had one, Mr.
Yeah.
White. We recently, so the 2 parcels, your parcel 10390, the 2, I guess that's to the east of you, and they're next to you and one backs up to you. Have you spoken with them about that? Do you have a plan to whom you want to sell this, or?
No, I just know that I want to sell the property, and we've seen them after the last meeting when they asked for a rezoning and told them that we were selling the property, but they haven't seemed like they're interested in it.
Surprising, because they touch right
I
up
know.
to it. But I saw your sweet house when I drove here tonight, and you're contained, you've got your fence. So you don't have any intended purpose except to sell it?
Yes, other than to sell it, yeah.
All right, well, that was my question.
Okay. Anybody else? No problem. Thank you.
Madam Secretary, has anyone come forward to speak at the public hearing?
No, no, ma'am, but we can open it and close it.
Okay.
If you'd like to state the time.
It's 6:10. Let's open the public hearing if there's anyone that would like to speak on this matter.
And no comments at this
Seeing
time?
no one, we'll close the public hearing at 6:10. Any discussion of commissioners about the lot?
I do, and this is going to require Robbie to go back to the picture that has, it's a little bit more, it's how the lot, okay, this exact one. So knowing where that's going to cut off, what is, my fear is we rezone this as residential. And we get to the point where somebody buys this and they want, is that wide enough for a road to go back to that property, or would that just be the length of a driveway?
So if Mr. White was to sell off the property, that lot is now zoned R1. So someone would have, using the example they have, that back property would be 0.88 acres. The R1 zoning district is 10,000 square feet to 43,000 square feet. Logically, they would have, because of that back portion being what's being sold off, a road would end up having to go back there. You'd probably get maybe 3 lots out of it if someone wanted to buy it. Could they come, if they wanted to go smaller, they would end up having to come back here, request a rezone to R2, R3 potentially, being those are the other representative zoning districts, at which point it would then become a discretionary item again.
Because my only fear is, right now, is that portion to the right of the lot large enough to handle a road, or would a potential buyer, and I'm just thinking forecasting here, would a potential buyer actually have to buy a portion of the land that came up for the parcel from last time to actually have the length of a road to be able to fit there?
I mean, that would be their prerogative if someone wanted to buy the other 3 lots and add this third one and then come in with a rezone altogether, like we were talking at the last meeting, a P-plat. You know, that's something they could do.
But as it stands right now, is that road?
As it stands right now, it would be on the developer to figure out a way to make a 2-lane road work to get back there and then loop it, have it meet our requirements because we've got a certain length they're allowed to go back for a cul-de-sac. This property is a pretty deep property. I mean, you've got development restrictions that would make subdividing the land beyond 1 more lot, splitting that into 2 lots, fairly difficult. But again, should it get rezoned, subdividing it into that 10,000 to 43,000 size would be permitted by right.
Okay.
Be done via a minor plat. Staff would review the minor plat. If it's not meeting development standards, well, it's not, the platting it wouldn't get approved.
Okay.
Kind of unique that this 1.8 acres, behind it is the property of the LLC that we heard from last meeting. Like, it L's over, and this lot backs up to the land of the LLC. It's not a straight line. It's an upside-down L, because I looked at it on ARCAD. There's several lots here that I think will one day be developed, but
Yeah,
I think they will be limited by that, because they can't go behind the 1.8 acres because it's someone else's land. It's parcel 10389.
yeah, this is a pretty old area. Back when it was county, you know, people sell by meets and bounds. That's how just generally you end up with these flag lots. I want to sell off the back portion of my property. That's kind of what's happening right now. These are just the city rules. We're getting it zoned correctly. Those are separate owners. You know, if the owners want to talk to each other and sell, that's their prerogative, but ultimately Those are two completely separate cases and they're not being run together, so they're considered independent of each other. Staff reviews each one independently.
Absolutely, that, understood. Any more discussion?
Just one more question. I need a reminder, I should have looked this up before. What was the zoning case from the last meeting? That, were they going R1 or were they trying R2? Do you remember?
They were going R2, Commissioner.
Okay. And this is R1?
Correct.
Okay.
I was just going to add to make sure to keep in mind that what the commission is allowed to consider, and so it's just a matter of what the use is. Okay.
Well, if no more discussion, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we recommend approving case ZR 25003.
I'll second it.
Yes, ma'am. We've got item 4B. This is an application for approval of a zoning change request from agriculture to residential estate to allow for one new single-family home. This is ZR 25-004.
Good evening, P&Z, City of Fate. My name's Robbie Highfield, Senior Planner for City of Fate, and I'll be giving the presentation on the Juan M. Solis property zoning request, project ID ZR 25004. Here's the location up in yellow off of North Star and County Road 979. Project description, this is a straight zoning request from agriculture to residential estate. The default zoning being agriculture. The goal is to remove the existing mobile home and construct a new single-family home. In order to do this, the property needs to be platted. This given North Star, when it was annexed into the city, prior to it being annexed, had a bunch of properties that were sold by meets and bounds. So the existing 1968 plat shows this all as one lot, shows one lot being lot 15, but this is half of the lot. So in order to build the home, we have to replat this as one portion, leave the second half as a remainder so that separate owner doesn't have to be involved, but that's triggering a rezone in order to make that new lot a legal size. Again, it's never been zoned, meaning it defaults to our agriculture district, given that's the placeholder, and residential estate is being requested due to lot size constraints. It's a 1.25 acre lot. Agriculture zoning districts, the minimum lot size is 5 acres. Residential estate is 1 to 5 acres. Here's the property. Again, one lot, 1.25 acres at the southwest corner of North Star Road and County Road 979. It has a mobile home, which you can see here in red, which would, plus some residential accessory structures. 3 approval criteria for a straight zoning request. Those criteria are, does it meet the comprehensive plan and other adopted plans? Does it meet the character of the surrounding neighborhood? And are there any other factors required or allowed by Texas law or case law? Criterion A, does it meet the comp plan? This area is, the place type for this area is rural reserve. Description of rural reserve is to include a mix of land uses such as farming, ranching, other ag services, supporting farmsteads, and limited residential estate development. Single family is a representative land use up here when it's on a large lot, and the rural estate is, or residential estate is a representative zoning district. For staff finds criterion A has been met. Criterion B, does it meet the character of the surrounding neighborhood? This is an overhead aerial shot of this entire region between King Road and FM 1138. All of this area is rural ag land and open space with a large lot residential neighborhood, that being North Star. North Stars consists of 1.25 to 2.5 acre lots. Again, like I mentioned, the original plat shows all of these as 2.5 acre lots. That subdividing of the land when it was in the county is how we ended up with a bunch of these 1.25s. But ultimately, given the rural character of the area and this request being a single residential home, staff find that criterion B is met. And there's no case law or Texas law to consider, so criterion C is not applicable. As with any zoning case, public notice was sent out. I do want to point out here, Collin County is directly to the north of County Road 979, so we did send one notice to Collin County. That's because jurisdictional boundaries do not matter. It's 200 feet, doesn't matter where it falls. So 11 notices were sent out, and we did not receive any responses for or against. And we did not run a fiscal analysis due to the small nature of this property, its low impact. So we don't run fiscals on these simple subdivisions. So staff's recommendation for case ZR 25004 is to approve. And I can take any questions. I do not see the applicant here today.
Any questions of staff? I had none of the applicant either, if they were in fact here. Any discussion, commissioners, about? It's real kind of cut and dry.
Commissioner, you do need to hold a public hearing.
We'll open the public hearing at, let my phone tell me what time it is, 6:23. Is there anyone that would like to come forward and speak on this application?
And I do not have any comment forms.
Okay, then we'll close the public hearing at 6:24 p.m. What's your pleasure? Anything to talk about, or I'll take a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve ZR 25004.
I'll second.
And it passes unanimously among the 5 in attendance.
On to item 4C. This is an application for a zoning change request from agriculture to general commercial to allow for a retail development, ZR 25-005.
Okay, taking along here. Evening, P&Z, City of Fate. My name's Robbie Highfield. I'm the senior planner for the City of Fate, and I'll be giving the staff presentation for Fate Central Commercial Mid-Retail Zoning Request, project ID ZR25005. This is a location in yellow, just just south of I-30 Frontage Road, between Fate Village Drive and Greenbrier Road. This is a straight zoning request from agriculture to general commercial. It's 11.6 acres and encompasses 3 parcels, or portions of 3 parcels. Those parcels being 10519, 10520, and 61630. The reason for this request is to prepare land for future development. Currently, there's no exact user identified. However, the land is in talks with a variety of general commercial type developers. Zoning the property preemptively like this assists the developer in those talks with those potential developers to better market the property. Therefore, they're coming forward with the case right now. So this property is off of Greenbrier Road and Fate Village Drive. In this picture, you are looking southeast on the new access road just off of Greenbrier Drive, facing the apartments. Currently, it is all vacant land. This brown you see is not active development. It's just carryover land from the Greenbrier Road and other commercial or other construction going in the area. But this is not, nothing is happening on the exact land right now, just to be clear. So approval criteria for a straight zoning case: does it meet the comprehensive plan and other adopted plans? Does it meet the character of the surrounding neighborhood? And is there any other required or allowed factors by Texas law or case law? So criterion A, this property actually has 2 place types on it. To the west, the western portion is our mixed-use center. General retail is a representative land use type. So even though general commercial zoning is not representative, the proposed uses are representative of what would go in this development. So that's a mitigating factor staff looked at. I put west twice. The east portion is the mixed use. The west portion is supportive commercial. In supportive commercial, general commercial is a representative zoning district, and retail and restaurant is a representative land use type. So staff finds that criterion A has been met. Criterion B. So this is the overall area. This is our zoning map. If I were to pull up the future land use plan map, you'd see that these 4 properties, moving my cursor on, are also that split place type of mixed use and supportive commercial. So this property would be similar in place type to that. As far as surrounding uses, there's a bunch of commercial around this intersection. To the north of the highway, you have Lafayette Crossing, that Project Cactus site. Across Catty Corner to that is Staggs. Directly to the east, northeast, is Fate Village, which has a host of various commercial uses. Directly to the north of the site, you have a bunch of anchor stores you could consider. Currently, we have Whataburger, Chipotle, and Breaks Plus, and three lots that are to be determined at this time. Although we are fairly certain about one of the users, we just can't announce it at this time since we don't have a formal submittal. Associated uses would be a future townhome development that's currently in the works, in the planning phases. It is entitled, they're going through site plan discussions. That's to the east of this. To the south, you've got both apartments, the Pros Greenbrier Apartments and Jameson, formerly known as Pros Phase 1 and Pros Phase 2. These high-density residential are compatible uses with a general commercial type of retail. You will tend to see high density nearby these types of developments. And then the further ring out, you've got Reserve at Chamberlain Crossing, and Williamsburg. These lower density single-family neighborhoods are also compatible to have a retail center in the near vicinity as well. This also creates a general nice transition from a high commercial center to a more high-density residential down to your low residential. So this is a good location as far as a development concern pattern for a mix of uses goes. So for all those reasons, staff find criterion B has been met. There's no other Texas law or case law to consider, so that criterion C is not applicable. We did have to send out public notice for this project. I want to point your attention to the map. You'll see this hashed color. This hash encompasses all the property, whereas this lighter pinkish color is the project site. We had to send the notice off the border of the hashes. The reason for that is state law requires that 200-foot buffer be encompassing of the affected parcels, not just the project site. That's how these properties down on Philadelphia ended up getting noticed because of this portion. The parcel actually extends all the way south here. That resulted in 59 notices being sent, and we did not receive any responses. So this fiscal analysis, we did do one. However, we did have to make quite a few assumptions, given we don't have a user identified at this time. So those assumptions are that 20%, we used Fate Village as a compatible site, assuming development growth pattern would be similar. We found that about 20% of the Fate Village area is actual commercial structure. The rest of it's open space, drive aisles, and parking. So we took that percentage, applied it to the 11.6 acres of development, and found 101,000 square feet of commercial space, and used that as our the amount of commercial to factor into the analysis. The market value we used was $412 per square foot. We received those numbers based on the average market value for this area for a host of different general commercial use types that you would expect to see at a site like this. We didn't use every single site that's allowed, because there's some that are just impractical that are permitted, but impractical for a site like this. We took the market value of all of those, averaged it together, came out to $412. Used that per square foot to find the market value for the site. We also considered 70% of the commercial space would be sales tax generating at $300 per square foot. That's because in a big commercial development like this, you can't necessarily anticipate every single square footage of that is going to generate sales tax for you. 70% is a reliable number to get a decent estimate, though. And we do acknowledge that this is just one scenario based on a whole host of assumptions. Ultimately, which end users end up at the site, what the site actually develops as, could change the fiscal performance either for the better or for the worse. So what's the actual numbers? So here's the fiscal. The year one contribution to the city is $402,000. Total road replacement cost is $256,250. The reason that number is so low is it's surrounded by collector streets. Those have one of the lowest multipliers, so the road replacement cost is a bit less. The total proportionate cost of the city's just over $40,000. The annual net revenue with roads is $355,400. Over 40 years with roads, that's $14.22 million. Our revenue to cost ratio with roads is 8.61 to 1. That means for every $1 spent, we can expect $8.61 in return, and 1 to 1 is considered breaking even. And our private to public ratio is 165.1 to 1. Our goal for a private to public ratio is 40 to 1 being net positive. And given that road replacement cost is so low comparatively to what this project's expected to make, it's anticipated to only take 3.1 years to repay public liabilities. Again, that assumes build out is the same as what Fate Village generally looked like. So staff's recommending approval for case ZR 25005. And the applicant is here, so I can take questions now or after he speaks if you have questions for him.
Thank you, Robbie. Any questions for Robbie before we hear from the applicant?
Yeah, I got one, just gee whiz, I guess. So your financial recap on here is best case scenario, right? Or is that kind of an average?
I won't even say it's best case scenario. This is a reasonable assumption that staff is looking at using a comparative development. This is one scenario that could happen if there's less commercial users, say it's a big box, for example, and a bunch of parking, it might produce less. But if it's a bunch of small sites, ultimately, then you've got more users paying more sales tax, you're going to have a higher value. We're confident in the market value number, though. We're confident that the assumptions were made with backing and are reliable assumptions. So this is something we could expect to see.
Perfect, thank you. That's what I was hoping you were going to say.
Anyone else have a question? I have one, Robbie. Well, I have two. You mentioned in the place type mixed use, but this is strictly general commercial.
Correct. The place type is the future land use plan.
Right.
The future land use plan has a bunch of representative zoning districts. There's no future land use plan associated with this case. It's strictly zoning.
And I've asked this question before, but I'm going to ask it again. Do we have the ability to ask or require that a percentage of this, with no end users named, be other than non-sales? Unlikely we'd get all donut shops and daycares, but is there any way that the city can ask that a certain percentage be sales tax generating? Because our commercial space is limited and precious, and this is, I mean, we see the success of Fate Village.
Yeah, so there's not, in a straight zoning case, anything that's permitted by right would be able to move in. The only time you would see something like that is if it were a planned developments. Those can come with prohibited uses involved in them, and you could, in theory, eliminate uses that wouldn't generate sales tax. There's also development agreements that come with planned developments. The caveat being, the only way to do that would be every commercial development in the city would have to be A, over 10 acres, so it could be a planned development, and B, every commercial development would be a planned development. That planned developments are essentially their own zoning code, and that would get very, very, very difficult for staff to enforce, because that's every time we would want to see something, you would have to pull up a different planned development. Anytime council may direct a change, you have to open up a planned development to change it, then you're looking at an entire planned development renegotiation. So, is there a way to do it? Sure. With what they're proposing, no.
Well, thank you for that detailed explanation. And the applicants brought us many a good thing, so I'll have faith they'll bring us some more. You said the applicant's here. Are you ready, sir, to present?
Good evening, Commissioners. Matt Johnson, Petro Hunt, 2101 Cedar Springs Road, Dallas, Texas. Appreciate y'all being here tonight to hear our zoning case. We're excited to present it to you all and to get your feedback and hopefully get your guys' approval to move forward in this process. I didn't have an overly extensive presentation for this property tonight, but I did have a few exhibits that I can show that depict some of the kind of intentions that you might see for a property like this and aid and assist in any questions that you may have or I think you might have. So happy to go through that. This is just to give you guys an idea of the actual legal depth of the zoning. So it's right about 500 feet at the rear of the frontage piece that's going in, where there's a number of retail kind of developments going in along the pad sites along the frontage road there. This is the probably more interesting one. So we worked with a number of different iterations of putting together just a concept plan consistent with what you might think some of the junior box type tenants or larger format tenant users might expect for their types of spaces. So really this, again, conceptual to use in the assistance of marketing and giving potential end users that we're in discussions with an opportunity to figure how they might lay out in the center of this type. So the great thing about this site is really, and why it fits this type of general commercial zoning and the characteristics that it has is just really the things of visibility, access, parking, signage, all the things that major retailers are going to look for in a site. This is going to check all those boxes. We've gone through in advance of coming forth in this zoning case and put in a lot of this infrastructure, right? So Fate Village Drive we installed, as well as Greenbrier Road, with the intent that eventually we would be able to handle additional retail traffic here. And so we think we've achieved that, and we're ready for kind of to begin that next phase of additional commercial development along our property there along the service road. And I would say, you know, from a timing perspective, I'm sure we'll have some questions around that. I would kind of refer back to being here actually in the summer of 2023 to do the zoning case for the pad sites along the frontage road there. And now here we are in summer of 2025. And those now, we've gone from zoning, kind of were able to do a good marketing effort to get a good tenant mix and then go through that development process with them. And now you're seeing construction coming up out of the ground 2 years later. And with this being a multi-tenant, call it like shopping center type, those can take a little longer as you're working through even co-tenancy and getting everybody on the ship together and all rowing in the same direction. So just wanted to kind of highlight timing-wise about what people might have for expectations about something like this. And then I just had a number of things that we have going on. If there's any questions around that, I'm happy to answer that as well. So, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, any question for Matt from Petro Hunt?
I have one question, and
Yes,
it's kind of not off subject, but I'm looking at your concept, and I know this is just concept. But when you're looking at, you talked about big box stores versus junior stores. What is the normal square footage that a big box store is looking at?
I mean, it's going to depend on the user type, right, and the type that you're referring to. But you know, generally, I think we're talking more about junior box in this setting, and
Okay.
so 15 to 25,000 up to 35,000 square feet.
Perfect, that's my only question.
Gentlemen?
I would say a lot of these things, I'll just add, you know, there's single category retailers, things that maybe are focused, they're a junior box, they're focused on selling, you know, a single product category type. Okay.
I've got a question, but it could also go to a single box store also, and nothing would need to be changed on zoning on that?
It may depend on their personal, or their representative needs about some characteristic, maybe parking or setbacks or something like that, but it would, you know, generally be an allowable use within this user type.
He's correct.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you all for having me. Appreciate it.
With that, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Samantha, did we have anyone that wished to speak on this matter? Well, it was 6:47 when I opened it. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this commercial project? No? Then we'll close the public hearing at 6:48. Commissioners, any discussion on this one? Or are we going to move straight to a motion?
No, I'll make a motion to approve ZR 25004.
I second.
This is 25.
Oh, I'm sorry.
005, Commissioner.
25005. Sorry, I make a motion to approve ZR 25005.
I'll second. Again.
Then it passes unanimously.
Now, item 4D, this is an application for a future land use plan amendment from rural reserve to suburban neighborhood for a single-family and townhome development, case number FLUP 25-001.
May I ask, do we handle D and E, first D, then E, since they're connected?
I know that Robbie, I believe, he did combine the presentation. However, each individual D and E will need separate votes and separate public hearings on both.
Good evening, P&Z, City of Fate. My name's Robbie Highfield. I'm the senior planner for the City of Fate. I'll be giving the staff presentation for Stellar Homes Future Land Use Plan Amendment Request and Zoning Request. The Future Land Use Plan Amendment, which I'll be referring to as FLUP, is FLUP 25001. The zoning case is ZR 25006. I apologize for that typo on the title slide. So just to keep things straight, as City Secretary said, this will be a combined presentation. I'll help lead that through as we go through this presentation and provide any clarification, but stop me if you have any questions. So here's the location off of 551, just north of the Edgewater development and south of Chamberlain Crossing Phase 6. So the FLUP, FLUP 25001, is a request to change the future land use plan from rural reserve, which is green color here, to suburban neighborhood, which is this yellowish orange. The reason for the FLUP request is to allow for an R3 zoning request. That's case ZR 25006. The applicant needs to do the FLUP because their proposed zoning district, R3, would not be permitted in R3. So that's why we're doing both at this case. The zoning request is a straight zoning request from agriculture to urban residential density 3, also known as R3. And the reason for that is to support a townhome and single-family development. You can see the change here from this green to this yellow color. It's 32 single-family homes and 56 townhomes. And this is an infill development, meaning we have surrounding development with this essentially acting as a donut hole of rural land. So this developer's coming in, will be filling in vacant land rather than sprawling out. So even though it's a straight zoning request and it's not required, they did provide a concept plan, and that's what we're showing you here. So this is generally what we would expect to see. We're still in discussion with the developer, and they have not submitted a site plan or plat yet. We're strictly at the zoning and future land use plan phase. So conceptually, this is what we're seeing right now. These outer lots are single family with the center being townhomes. And you've got a circular street here, Street A and Street C, alley served townhomes, and a stub street to F, which would line up with Reserve 4. I'm sorry, Edgewater 4. So this is the property. You're looking east off of 551 here. It's 3 lots totaling approximately 11.88 acres at the southeast corner of Charleston Lane and FM 551, and currently has 1 house plus some accessory structures. So the approval criteria for a future land use plan and zoning case are the same. So I'm only going to go over, I combined the approval criteria for both cases, even though each one will have its own vote. When we get to the question time, feel free to ask about them individually. So the approval criteria is A, does it meet the comprehensive plan and other adopted plans? Does it meet the character of the surrounding neighborhood? And is there any other factors required or allowed by Texas law and case law? So A, comprehensive plan and other plans. So the City of Fayette has a master thoroughfare plan showing future road expansion plans, the size we expect those roads to be. FM 551 is a arterial 4-lane divided road. That's what A4D stands for, 100 feet wide. It's part of the TxDOT FM 551 widening plan. This developer will be required to do a TIA, which would determine what exact road requirements would be needed. That TIA generally comes in with the preliminary plat, because that's the point we would start to see site plan layout. Comprehensive plan goals. Managed growth goal 1.2 is to evaluate future development proposals based on consistency with place types in relationship with surrounding uses. And housing choice 1.4 is to ensure appropriate transitions or buffers between residential areas and other uses. This project is, like I said, an infill development, and it's more dense than the surrounding neighborhoods. That being said, it's not the most dense. It's what you could consider, what's considered missing middle housing. It's that in between. This is, being that central location surrounded by the subdivisions, it provides a natural transition from that low density to that middle density. And even the site itself is set up with the highest density in the center of the site, with that lower density surrounding it, providing even more of a buffer. As for the future land use plan, R3 is representative in the suburban neighborhood place type. So should the P&Z recommend approval and City Council ultimately approve the future land use type, the future land use plan amendment, R3 would then become a representative zoning district. For those reasons, staff find that criterion A is met in both cases. Criterion B, does it meet the character of the surrounding neighborhood? As I mentioned, the surrounding neighborhood is all single-family subdivisions, meaning everything around the site is residential, barring one small stretch of neighborhood commercial land directly to the north. There's no development plans that have been submitted. That's just a neighborhood commercial zoned property. That said, commercial is compatible with a development. So being neighbors, that would make sense. Additionally, that 551 expansion would have is planned with sidewalks on either side, so you would then have a connection there between those two developments. To the north, you have Chamberlain Crossing, Phase 6. To the east is the future Edgewater Phase 4. To the south is Edgewater Phase 1, and to the west is Williamsburg. Apologize for not putting the exact phases of Williamsburg. I believe it's Phase 1 and 2. So given the residential nature and the the similar zoning to the north, staff find criterion B has been met. And in both cases, there's no other Texas law or case law to consider, so criterion C is not applicable. So for both zoning and future land use plan, we're required to send public notice. We sent out 2 comment forms, one for the future land use plan and one for the zoning. But it's the same area, 200 feet surrounding the project area. Resulted in 17 responses being sent. There were 2 responses received. They were commenting both on the zoning and the future land use plan, which is why we only say 2 here. They were both against, and the reason being too much traffic and congestion along 551 in the neighboring communities, and they wish for infrastructure, namely roads, to be fixed before any more development comes into play. So, fiscal analysis. Wanted to point out, fiscal analysis is not an approval criteria, rather it's only an informational tool. Also, pointing out not every project will pay for itself, and that the current design of this project is preliminary and may change. So we actually did two fiscal analyses here. One based off developer-provided numbers, and one based off what the city expectations are. The reason we ran two, we normally just go with the developer numbers if they're provided to us. However, knowing the market, staff felt that we needed to relook at what the development market value may be. We felt it was a bit too far off and was leading to some erroneous numbers in our fiscal analysis. So the developer estimates the new market value to be $8.8 million, whereas city staff's expectations are that it'll be $26 million. Talk about the math behind that, but essentially staff is expecting $375,000 for the single family, $250,000 for the townhomes. Multiply those numbers by the amount of single family, the amount of townhomes, you get the new development market value. And during the developer's presentation, they can speak to where they got 8.8 should you wish to hear that portion. The year one contribution, the developer states it to be $31,000. We calculated $31,000 based off their numbers. Based on our numbers, we calculated it to be $65,400. Total road replacement cost in both cases, because the road plan doesn't change, only the development value is being changed. The road replacement cost is going to be the same in both cases, that being $2.87 million. Proportionate cost to the city changes vary by about $200. Developer, when we calculate it, comes out to $39,800 compared to $40,000 for the city provided numbers. The annual net revenue with roads, using the developer's number, came out to a loss of $80,000 annually. The city provided numbers, it comes out to $46,000 of loss. Over 40 years, the developer provided numbers is a loss of $3.73 million. City staff's numbers calculate that out to $2.37 million. The revenue to cost ratio with roads using the developer's numbers comes out to 0.28 to 1. City staff's numbers comes out to 0.59 to 1. Again, 1 to 1 is considered net positive. So in both cases, that's a negative ratio. And the private to public ratio using the developer's numbers is 3.2 to 1. City numbers come out to 9.2 to 1. Again, 40 to 1 is considered net positive. Years to repay public liability using developer's numbers is 155 years. Years to repay using city numbers is 55 years. And for transparency, that was the number that set off the red flags and made us look at the development value. So again, considering that the fiscal is not part of the approval criteria, rather informational, we can also talk about staff's assumptions on why the numbers look like that. Staff is recommending approval for both FLUP 25001 and zoning case ZR 25006. Again, I apologize for the typo here. So I do see the developer in the audience, so I can take questions now or after their presentation, should they have one.
Thank you, Robbie. Any questions for Robbie?
I just have one quick question for Robbie. Can you remind me what the FLUP map is for the surrounding area? I know you had that picture up, but I didn't take good enough notes, so.
It is rural reserve for their property, this green here.
Yes.
This surrounding section is all neighborhood or suburban neighborhood. I will point out these little triangles here, if you can see my cursor, are marked as rural reserve, but those are part of Edgewater. So the suburban neighborhood does actually extend out to this portion over here. It just, for whatever reason, is not marked like that on the map.
So it's completely surrounded by suburban neighborhood?
The place type, yes.
The place type, yes. Okay, thank you.
Gentlemen, any questions for Robbie?
I have one. There's the neighborhood commercial that's just north of that. Is that something the city changed, or is that?
I am not positive when the change went into effect. I would have to dig through the cases, why that is neighborhood commercial. So unfortunately, I don't have an answer for you there.
Okay, thanks.
Robbie, are you aware of any issues with water, with flooding? I don't know this firsthand, but I've heard of it quite a bit between Edgewater and Chamberlain Crossing. I've seen YouTube videos about it, and it's talked about. I sit on my neighborhood's HOA board with Councilmember Harper, and I know we've heard a good bit about it, but I don't know. I wondered if you had heard.
I'm not familiar with the drainage conditions on the site. Perhaps the developer is. I can say a drainage study would absolutely be required as part of the development. It generally comes in with the civils, and we tend to push it, if possible, to the preliminary plat stage, just so it can be factored into the platting component. If this were to get approved, get to construction phase, they're going to have to use that drainage study. They're going to have to contain all their water either on site. We have ordinances that point to not having any downstream effect. There's no floodplain on this property, so there wouldn't be a floodplain issue. But ultimately, none of that really matters on a future land use plan or a zoning case, because those aren't part of the approval criteria. We're only looking at, is the use for the zoning, is the use appropriate for this area? And for the future land use plan, is this an appropriate place type, meaning the uses, the representative zoning and the representative uses, are those all appropriate for this area? That's what we're considering tonight. All that other stuff comes down the road.
Thank you. And just two more quick questions. Was this discussed or considered to come to us as a plan development versus strictly zoning?
There was discussion internally with staff whether we do a plan development here or straight zoning. Ultimately, staff will always prefer a straight zoning case. I won't say always, almost all the time a straight zoning case is going to be our preference, because that means the developer will be playing by the Unified Development Ordinance and design criteria standards that the city has applied, that the city council has approved as part of the Unified Development Ordinance. Anytime you open up a PD, which admittedly this site is large enough to do a PD, you're now creating new district. It's not the city just dictates what we want to see on that site in a plan development. It's a give and take. The developer would be able to ask for going to a lower density than what the lot size, what the lot is. They could ask for having the lot sizes be larger or smaller. You know, that's not to say that those changes are necessarily a negative, but again, you're creating a whole new zoning district when you do that, all new rules, and those rules play in perpetuity. It's not, once staff changes over in 15, 20 years, new boards, new staff members, new inspectors, those inspectors aren't gonna be playing by whatever the UDO is in those 20 years. They're gonna be playing by this current thing, the current PD. I'll point to Wood Creek. Some of the issues we see when we have the Wood Creek commercial, we ask about, well, how is this project allowed? Well, planned developments have what uses are permitted, what uses aren't permitted. Some of those uses may not be permitted in our current code because we've decided we don't like those, but because that zoning district exists in perpetuity, it's that any developer that moves in that could be a Darth Vader development, for lack of a better term, not saying these developers are, but say we get a bad actor down the road, they could come in and do that. So that's the risk with PDs. The more you have, the more difficult it becomes, and if we're confident in our UDO, and if we're confident in our design criteria, and the developer is willing to play by straight zoning rules, that is always going to be the preference.
Thank you. I have a better understanding of that now. That was really well said. And my last question, and I know you don't have a crystal ball, and I'm going to the traffic meeting on the 22nd, but you described 551 as 4 lanes.
Correct.
In a master plan.
On the master thoroughfare plan.
And do we have a when on that?
Our assistant city manager is here. Stephen, do you want to talk about that project?
I did not think the mic would pick that up, sorry. No, we've just been having a lot of conversations with them, obviously prepping for next Thursday night. They don't have an exact time. It's not funded by the state of Texas at this point. The earliest they anticipate seeing that happen is probably 2030. So we're probably still 5 years out from everything being done. They're still in environmental clearance stage right now, which I don't think is anticipated to be done until we'll find out more next Thursday. I think next year is when environmental clearance should be done. Then it's got to get funded. And they didn't anticipate, because we've had this conversation about Lafayette Crossing, given the traffic impacts there, about maybe 2029, but probably 2030 is the year that at soonest.
Thank you.
I'll just piggyback on that. Just because the TxDOT expansion won't be done doesn't mean if the TIA comes back and says, hey, these improvements have to be done, they would still be responsible to get all those improvements done. It just involves getting a TxDOT permit. That's pretty standard anytime there's a TxDOT road. So they will still have to attest to traffic.
Thank you. Question, Commissioner?
I do have one more based on what your conversation with Commissioner Kaiser was. If this goes straight zoning and it goes R3, so we have kind of what they're looking at, even though it's not a set site plan, anything like that. If we go straight zoning with this, could that potentially change where the entire site becomes townhomes? And because there's not going to be a PD or anything like that, because we're trying to kind of veer away from that based on my assumptions that I'm making from your conversation, that can go straight townhomes if we zone to R3, correct?
I'm double checking our table of allowed uses right now, but yes, in theory, this is a concept plan. Townhomes, an attached townhome project is permitted by right with some additional standards. That just means there's additional criteria they have to meet, but it is a permitted use. Ultimately, with straight zoning, we've approved as a city the Unified Development Ordinance. That means if we are confident in our allowed uses, if we are confident in our plan, that means the developer in turn is allowed to do anything we've said is permitted by right.
What's the max size they could make those lots into R3? Just going the opposite direction here.
Yeah. I keep wanting to use my mouse,
Sorry
mouse
about
I
that.
have here. Residential zoning districts. lot size in R3 is gonna be R2, R3. Minimum 3,500 square feet, maximum 7,500 square feet. I will point out on the concept plan here, there is still gonna be some discussion we're going to have with the developer. They're showing connected townhomes here, 0 lot lines. R3 zoning allows for 0 lot line, but the other side would have to be 10. So they would either need to go to zoning board of adjustment to get that 0 lot line request approved, or just rearrange the townhome component to be 0 and 10. That's why this is just conceptual, right? Staff hasn't even looked at it as far, like, dug into the code. But yes, to answer all your questions about uses, the developer can change it once it's approved. Do I anticipate them doing that? No. But if they walk and another developer comes in, yeah, that can happen. But that's the case with every single zoning case that will come before you. That is always a risk that the city will incur.
Okay, are we ready for the applicant?
Is it on? Oh.
Good
Hello,
evening.
members of the commission. We don't have a presentation available yet. We're in the process of developing it, but I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Sir, I'm sorry, can you just state your name for the record?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Luis Perez. I'm with Innova Design Group. We're the consultants, part of the zoning change process, and we're part of the development team as well. But yeah, I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. I wanted to touch bases on 2 things that I heard. One, regarding the drainage. We actually, we went out this past week, was the first week that weather was permitting for our surveyors to be able to fly out the drone out there. So we were able to get a topographical map finally. That's gonna lead us to start the drainage assessment, because of course we know that with any subdivision that we're planning, the first step is to make sure that we're not going to create a flooding issue or add to a flooding issue. Now, per preliminary analysis, we think we're gonna be able to offload to the south. There's a green belt along the south side of our property. We might be able to offload there. We're kind of following the same idea that Edgewater to our east kind of followed. They have a pretty huge parcel of land dedicated to just drainage. Well, what we assumed is drainage. So we're kind of following their, backing off of them, like following their plan as well. But it's all gonna be proven with the drainage assessment. And we have talked about if we need to offer detention, we have talked about certain areas where we could go ahead and take away some of the units to offer detention on our site. So just be aware that we are looking into that already. Because we want to make sure before we're able to continue with the final site plan. The other thing that I wanted to touch on is, you did mention, I understand the inherited risk that, the members of the commission and even council always fear that whenever you approve a zoning, it's kind of, you approve the zoning, so now we're able to do anything that we want within the zoning. Rest assured that the way we designed this floor plan is we wouldn't be able to add more townhomes, therefore create more density, because under your UDC or Unified Development Code, you have requirements that for lots under a certain width, you need a rear access alley, an alley running behind them, in order so you won't have the garage in front of them. That wouldn't be possible for the single-family lots that we're offering, because we wouldn't want to run an alley along the perimeter. So that's why we proposed the townhomes in the middle, and that also led us to be able to propose these parks where you kind of see a trail in between the clusters of townhomes, right? Those are going to be what you call on muse, and we think it'll add a lot of walkability to the neighborhood. So other than that, any questions that you might have, I'm available.
Any questions for the applicant, gentlemen? Ladies, no? Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you so much.
So it is 7:20, and let's go ahead and open the public hearing. Is there anyone wishing to speak, Samantha?
Commissioner, you'll need to open,
Sorry, so I have a gentleman here, he would like to speak on this item, so you wanted to speak on this versus waiting on 4E? Yes, actually, I put the wrong number. No problem, absolutely, so. we
That's
do-
all right, sir. I might have put the wrong order, so pause just 1 minute. Yes. And I get guidance from staff.
No, as long as you, as chair, as standing in, if you would allow him, and I can make the change on here, and of course on the
Okay.
minutes as well.
But was there a step I skipped?
Just announce the public hearing and the time, and then I can announce him to the podium. Correct, and so I can just have him speak on, you just want to speak on this public hearing, this item. So he's just switching. He had just originally mentioned 4E versus 4D, but he
Right.
would like to change it to, on this public hearing. So if you would allow, he would like to speak on this item.
Okay, and to clarify, this public hearing then is going to be on FLUP 25-001. Thank you for your patience. And it is 7:21, and we'll open it now.
Yes, ma'am. And Mr. Christopher Fira of 2000 Chisholm Trail.
First, I want to thank the commission for the opportunity to speak, and I am doing so on behalf of my father-in-law, a Fate resident on 551, very nearby the proposed development. And he wishes to express his concerns about the zoning change, and will request that you deny that change for a number of reasons. The first is that he believes that the proposed change of R3 is not consistent with the neighboring communities. Mr. Highfield already mentioned the fact that the surrounding residences are single-family residences. All of the area surrounding it is zoned for such, and that's a big change in character. The traffic congestion on Highway 551 is already a problem at certain hours of the day. That translates to having difficulty getting out of his own drive in the morning because his drive does adjoin 551. The proposed development would only compound that problem, and given the fact that we learned that the expansion of the highway is perhaps 5 years off, that would become a real issue for not only him, but the other residences, the folks living nearby as well. A minimum of 88 new residences in the vicinity would probably reduce the water resources and impact the sewer. It's our understanding that there's a long run for the sewer line in that area, and so he has some concerns that would be an issue for those residences. He's not currently on city sewer, but it's something in consideration for him. But certainly the other nearby residences would be. Also concerned about fire risk, especially during the construction phase of that development, and all of the nearby residences with that. We've already seen some examples of high-density construction resulting in some severe fires in last few years. And then finally, we believe that there's availability of maybe more appropriate property closer to I-30, and the commercial and retail development there would be a more appropriate setting for, you know, the high-density development. So that's it. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on FLUP 25-001? Thank you. Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing at 7:20. Start on this, any discussion? Commissioner Overstreet? Okay. Jeff, anything? I just have a comment about the change to the FLUP. I mean, it's coming, it's going to be changed when the comprehensive land use plan gets worked on, I believe, as early as certainly next year. I find it challenging to take spots of the FLUP and kind of spot change it. And that's just Karen Kaiser's opinion, but I don't find the existing designation as rural reserve inappropriate, kind of to be, you know, in the middle, but that's just my opinion. Anyone else have any thoughts about it? Then we would be ready for a motion specifically on the FLUP change.
I'll make a motion to approve the FLUP amendment change FLUP 25-001.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
So just for the commission's information, because your recommendation is to deny the FLUP, the zoning case in front of you would not meet the future land use plan, so staff's recommendation to the commission would therefore change to deny.
Does that require anything specific from us, or that's done at staff level? It's kind of moot without the map change?
Have to proceed with the public hearing on this portion, so we would still go through the steps.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And you combined the presentations. We've heard from the applicant. Should I give the is there anything further, sir, you wanted to add?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Then let's go ahead and open the public hearing for the zoning matter at 7:28. Is there anyone that's asked to speak on this?
No, ma'am.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on the zoning matter? Hearing no one, we'll close the public hearing at 7:28. And then we make a motion and go forward with this, okay? Ready for a motion if anyone has one.
Okay, we're going to try to do this. I make a motion to deny ZR 25-006.
I second it.
And that motion passed unanimously.
On to item 5, Senior Planner of Planning and Development Services, report announcements pertaining to city activities, upcoming events, future legislative activities, and other matters related thereto.
So we don't have much. We've got one thing to point out. End of May or early June, P&Zs. Some of your terms are coming to end. The city secretary's office, either Sam or Vicky, will be reaching out regarding running for reappointment. that is all we have. If you have any questions on that, feel free to reach out to the city secretary's office.
Item 6, adjournment.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second it.
There it goes.
Thank you, Robbie. You got a workout tonight. Yeah, good job, man. Excellent.